Throughout the month-long trial, defence barrister Greg Scragg has been adamant the evidence of 3 informants is an utter fabrication. 3 men are serving time for a brutal attack on John Stewart and his wife Susan at the Lochinvar Equestrian Centre in December 3 years ago. The trio allege Lionel Desange paid them $30,000 to kill Stewart because he blamed him for financial losses of the business. In describing Gary Brown, the defence told the jury, whether you regard him as a killer with a deep dark past or a delusionary individual who fantasises about killing, you would not accept anything that he would say. Also brought into doubt Gary Brown's evidence that 2 months before the Lochinvar attack, Desange hired him and Tony Peters to take out Mr Stewart at a vet clinic in Melbourne. The defence pointing out not only did Mr Stewart not work at the vet clinic, but that there were glaring inconsistencies in both informant stories. The jury is expected to start deliberations late tomorrow. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
The characters that are in there are very much characters that I can picture that I've met in my travels.
I think you summed it up when you said stereotype. Most of the ladies that I know that dance actually are married or are putting themselves through school.
本日は誠にありがとうございました。
for Queensland, searching for alternative therapies from a nurse to their Port Macquarie home in January, insisting they take there before her death. But when welfare authorities went to their Port Macquarie
thoroughly rehydrated? Yeah.
It looked like an invasion force arriving at the Paceway at Broadmeadow today. The Australian Army is massing its hardware for a spectacular display and recruiting drive. The Paceway will be open from 10:30 until 5 tomorrow, showcasing the benefits of the regular and Army Reserve in an attempt to recruit 17 to 35-year-olds. The Army says it has a lot to offer.
How it can help them go through university, pay for their university fees, and the skills that we can give them to take into life.
Meantime, an army of a different type is being sought to represent the hunter in the upcoming centenary of Federation celebrations in Sydney. Arts Hunter is preparing a float for the Federation Parade on January the 1st in Sydney and needs 60 young people to take part.
They're paid, their accommodation, transport and living allowance is covered, and they'll also be trained.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
European carp are the dreaded enemy of fishermen and conservation groups alike, and their very existence in Ironbark Creek and Hexham Swamp is causing them major concern. Carp erode creek banks by pulling at the vegetation and stir up the creek bed, killing off native fish like flathead and bream.
They have an impact on our fish and prawn stocks. They have an impact on the water quality and siltation of our creeks and so forth. It's very hard to think of anything much good about them.
Professional fishermen teamed up with volunteers from the Hunter Catchment Management Trust today, using nets to remove some of the feral fish. The carp thrive in Ironbark Creek because it's stagnant, dirty water, a condition created by the closure of the Ironbark floodgates.
Until we can start to get more tidal influence back into Ironbark Creek by increasing the opening the Ironbark Creek floodgates, we're going to be left with this situation.
You get the salt water back up in here, you'll get the predatory fish which will chew into the small carp. So there's a couple of ways that just allowing nature to do its job will have a big control on these carp.
The Carp caught today will be sold to co-ops as crab bait, but they may have an export potential to Korea, where they're a delicacy and can fetch up to $100 each. Catherine Turner, NBN News.
Moving across from Maitland City to Beresfield this year, Clayton Parker never thought he'd end up with a national medal. Together with Simon Lack, the two became the district's first Australian pair champions, beating Victoria 19-9, an incredible achievement for a duo that only teamed up this year.
It is pretty unique actually. For two blokes to come from different clubs, join up and be so compatible, it's quite good, but it's made it easy with Clayton because he's such a nice fella.
For Lack, it caps off an incredible year, which included Champion of Champions and Hub of the Hunter single title wins, but he's keen to defend the pair's crown.
Everybody be after us.
That doesn't worry Clay, who's happy to back up his skip.
A fella from Maitland City, Terry Hahn, always told me the skipper's in charge. Let him make all the shots and play the game and just do as you're told.
And that's what you did?
That's what I do all the time. Try to anyway.
Meanwhile, the Adamstown Prestige Triples concludes tonight with the team to catch skippered by Hamilton's John Carmody. He led Russell Hill's Charlestown team heading into tonight's final round by just 3 shots. Since coming to Newcastle last season, Travis Dodd has filled many roles in the side. Last weekend was arguably his most memorable though, with a scorching strike for goal. It's something he'd love to replicate tonight.
It was a great feeling to get the first one at Marathon, and yeah, hopefully I can get another one this week. It'd be very nice.
After playing 3 seasons with Adelaide though, Dodd's best weapon could be his hometown knowledge.
Pretty much learnt the way they play, so it's always in the back of their mind what they're going to try and do and how they're going to play, so hopefully I can use that to our advantage.
Either way, he just wants to put on a show for his family and friends, who may well be Newcastle's only fans in Adelaide tonight.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think they're the only ones going for us down there. There wouldn't be too many supporters, but yeah, they always get pretty vocal.
The match kicks off at 8:30 tonight our time, with the result on tonight's NBN News late edition.
Newcastle is at war. Hostile forces are attacking the harbour, and upon arriving to set up a support base at the Paceway, the army finds it in the hands of the enemy. But of course, the only battle being waged was one to convince 17 to 35-year-olds to join the Army Reserve. And if the machine guns, armoured personnel carriers and heavy artillery didn't do the trick, there were 190 soldiers on hand saying how much they enjoy it.
Best thing about it is the mateship with all the people, the different people you get to meet over the years.
Meanwhile, a different kind of recruitment drive was underway at Newcastle's blood bank. Stocks are low and the busy Christmas season is fast approaching. Staff are asking for anyone healthy and willing from 16 to 65 to make a donation.
It wasn't George Street, Sydney, but Heath Francis probably preferred it was downtown Stroud that turned out to honour his incredible achievements at the Paralympics. At 18, the sprinter won 3 gold and a silver, breaking 2 world records in the process, all with stress fractures to both feet. And writer's cramp could have been added to that list today as well. Heath's achievements have made him the area's favourite son and a hit nationwide, named Junior Male Paralympian of the Year. Some 280 rising stars of the surf are at Blacksmith's Beach today for Swansea Belmont's annual Iron-Person Championship. Races range for competitors from under 9s to 16s, with Josh Blair and Kai Hurst included as past winners. So well regarded are the championships that competitors come from Warilla in the south to Ballina. While the host club won the relay, Woolgoolga's Adam Wood won the senior boys and Naomi Flood the girls. And former Waratah-based bowler Barry Salter has led his triples to victory in the Adamstown Prestige Twilight Tournament. Salter's trio scored a big win on the final night of play to beat Russell Hill's team by just 3 shots overall.
Police say they want Newcastle to be a fun place after dark.
Where decent people can come for a really good night out, they can have a drink, they can enjoy dancing and whatever the case may be, because that's what we want people to do. We're not against people having a good time. What we want to stop is the violence and the stupidity and the mindless behaviour that comes with the cocktails of drugs and too much alcohol.
Plainclothes police and sniffer dogs patrolled Newcastle railway stations and 90 trains and buses over the weekend. The blitz on antisocial behaviour and crime was just a small part of the ongoing Operation Safe City. 20 people were arrested, 25 charged, 16 offences drug-related and 50 infringement notices were issued. In a separate weekend drink driving blitz, more than 1,500 people were breath tested, 27 found to be over the limit, 33 arrested on separate charges. Meanwhile, as to a crime we're most likely to fall victim to, that being the theft of our property from our car or the car itself. It's a problem yet again on the increase in Newcastle. A staggering 74 people reported a smash and grab on their car parked in the city or a nearby suburb during the month of October. 22 vehicles stolen in that time.
We're not powerless to stop it, but we're certainly limited in our ability, because you could have 20 police in a particular area and the crime will move to another area.
On Saturday night, 8 cars hit in the hotspot streets of Union, Lehman and King. Once again, it's prompted warnings for valuables in cars to be kept out of sight. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Absolutely wild. I was furious, but I was devastated as well, and so were the volunteers. It's not the first time it's happened, and it's really very disheartening.
Wollongong had been counting the days since star striker Scott Chipperfield returned from a trial with English club Bolton, but Soccer Australia has ruled him out of playing against Newcastle this Friday, saying he still has to serve a suspension pending from the last game he played in the country.
We'll have to go without Petrovski, and if Soccer Australia want to enforce their stupid ban on Scott Chipperfield, we'll be without him.
The Premiers are already reeling from a lack of top-line players due to suspension. Sasho Petrovski, the latest to go after earning his 4th booking this season against the Cosmos.
Sasha Petrovski is completely undisciplined. He's out for 2 weeks now. It's a stupidity from players who you thought would have more intelligence.
Add to that Dino Manello, who has a week to serve on the sidelines after being sent off against Parramatta. The Wolves camp is far from happy, with coach Ron Corey also fuming his club won't sign more players to cover those missing. Newcastle, meanwhile, return home this weekend with a run of 3 unbeaten games under their belt after securing a draw against Adelaide. There are no injury concerns, with the defender Chris Zoricic expected to make his return, while the club will also officially welcome new signing Anthony Magnaca tomorrow after he arrived late today. The idea Con Constantine would purchase the club was floated some weeks ago, and the businessman wanted a decision today.
Very sure. One way or another.
Late today, he said he believed the deal had been struck, but the Knights said negotiations are ongoing, with the League's club board to have the final say. The Knights incurred a huge loss on the League's club, spending more than $1 million in the purchase and refurbishment alone, and given the current financial problems, a sale would offset some of those losses. Meanwhile, Knights old boy Mark Sargent is looking forward to his return to the football club in a new role that encompasses marketing and the football managing role. He joins a growing list of ex-players who are coming back to the club, and he hopes the trend continues.
I think that's a positive. Obviously, they're guys that are very familiar with the history of the club, and while you've got to look ahead, it certainly helps to be able to know where you're coming from.
The club's first kangaroo, Sarge knows some will question his return given his involvement with Super League, but believes the future is all that counts. He'll start the new job before Christmas.
It's not an unfamiliar sight in Newcastle Harbour. Large coal ships and smaller fishing vessels, both at anchor. But there's a newcomer there now, a Far 40 yacht, Sydney to Hobart entrant Aurora. And right now the yacht's crew of 9 are busy training for the challenging event.
Hobart's a bit of a legendary race because it's one of the hardest, it is the hardest race year in and year out on the ocean racing calendar.
The Aurora and its crew are no stranger to tough conditions. They weathered the fierce storms in 1998, which killed 6 crew members from other boats. But despite their experience, there's no resting if they're to take the dangers seriously.
Going all through the night just to make sure that everybody can do their job, know where everything is on the boat.
More than just on the water training, the crew has to strip the boat down to bare essentials. Check, recheck, then check again all the parts before putting it back together. Even after being convinced that the vessel is up to scratch, skipper Dr James Holly feels that it's other races punters should keep an eye on.
Well, don't anybody put any money on Aurora. No, I think Brindabella will be there.
Adam Harper, NBN News.
Since officially opening in February, the $8.4 million Glendale Regional Athletic Centre has obviously impressed the right people. It's hosted various athletic and gymnastic meets, and the ground was home to many Olympic and Paralympic competitors in the lead-up to Sydney 2000, not to mention the Pacific Cup women's soccer matches played earlier this year featuring the Matildas. It's convinced the powers that be with the venue to host the first state country athletic championships held outside of Sydney for 37 years. It'll begin on January 20, but there will be action at the centre every weekend in the new year for the first 2 months. Quite possibly, Australia's cricket captain for the next test, Adam Gilchrist, will be in the region next Monday. The champion Aussie gloveman will head a coaching clinic for juniors at the #1 sports ground and will be joined by Australian women's player Melanie Jones and state players Corey Richards and Brad Haddon.
Last week, police arrested Darryl Webb for the murder of his young stepdaughter. They allege the Raymond Terrace man caused bruising to the 8-month-old's head, which left her unconscious and on a life support system. Young Chloe died on the 28th of August. But today, at a bail hearing in Newcastle Local Court, Webb's solicitor Daniel Smythe said his de facto wife, Heather Lawson, believed he was innocent of the crime and was willing to have him back at home. He said when Webb was placed into protective custody, custody, inmates were chanting for his blood and he had boiling water thrown at him. This would make it difficult for him to prepare his case. Magistrate Morahan refused the 35-year-old bail and adjourned the case for mention in a fortnight. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
This whole area of Club Nova, the first floor, will become a village, and it will be a theme. And I think when people come from downstairs to here, they won't recognise they're still in the club.
In some cases, strokes can be caused by a lack of blood to the brain. The carotid artery can become clogged. Surgery is the only way to fix this. Today at Lake Macquarie Private Hospital, a new technique was demonstrated to 15 Australian and American surgeons by leading vascular surgeon Takao Oki.
Instead of opening the neck under general anesthesia, we will go through the groin with a small catheter and then place a balloon and a stent to open up the narrowing.
The new technique is safer than the standard surgery and provides an alternative for patients who have already had the older style operation and are unable to have it again. Dr. Oki also demonstrated to the vascular surgeons a new device used for the first time in Australia.
This procedure that opens up the narrowing can cause particles to go up to the brain and cause a stroke. So what we did this morning was in fact the first case done in this country, was to have a device that can capture those particles that are released during the carotid stenting.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News. Diabetes, which affects more than 800,000 Australians, can be a potentially life-threatening illness if left unchecked. But there's also some evidence that diabetes sufferers are more likely to have severe strokes and recover much more slowly.
There's also some evidence that diabetic patients and perhaps other patients who have high blood sugar levels, which is the hallmark of diabetes, when they have a stroke, they actually tend to have a poorer outcome.
Today, NIB Health Funds donated $70,000 to Hunter Medical Research Institute doctors to conduct a 3-year study on the relationship between blood sugar levels in diabetes sufferers and stroke activity. It's then hoped a multi-centre second phase intervention project will be set up.
We hope will lead us to the development of a larger scale interventional study where we can look at blood sugar lowering in the acute stages of stroke.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Back in December 1998, Glenn Spicer won a nationwide competition to design an affordable, energy-efficient and environmentally friendly house. This is the result. With a budget of $110,000, the house, built in Medford, took 6 months to build and should provide a lifetime of energy savings.
It doesn't involve any really expensive technology. It's done to a budget. There's lots of little things that are incorporated in the house that really put it all together and it works.
Those little things include low voltage lights, 3 rainwater tanks which supply 90% of required water, a drainage system off the roof's guttering by which water is recycled, and louver windows which help with temperature control, all of which adds up to a smaller bill.
But saving a third of your energy bills is a great saving.
So that would be very attractive to any homeowner.
The house will now serve as Landcom's regional sales office. Also recognised for its green commitment, Scratchley's on the Wharf. The restaurant won the Energy Efficiency and Waste Management categories at the Newcastle Environmental Achievement Awards. It was also the overall winner in the business division. Catherine Turner, NBN News.